Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Gustavo. I'm one of the co-founders of Aprender Design School. I'm very excited about this moment. Thank you everyone for joining, for being with us. I'm just going to talk for 2-3 minutes just to introduce the school, and then I'll pass to Du, and then we'll start. Just a quick intro about Aprender Design. We are a school originally from Brazil, but now more global. We decided to create the school 5 years ago with a feeling that art, design, and creation was thought maybe with like two opposite concepts. Like one that is like traditional institutions, which were like teaching and passing knowledge in a really traditional, not connected to reality and to the market way. And another model that was like boot camps and more contemporary schools, which were like teaching in a more like fast way, connected to the market, but without the basics, like the fundamentals, like the way people actually think and connect to those topics. So we thought maybe there was a space, an opportunity, like an idea of like trying to create a school that connect this both parts, like the basics, the theory, the fundamentals, but also with like the market connection, the practice. So we understood that the most like important part on like education was like the teachers. So we created a model which teachers were like key part, fundamental, like the main participants, the main like parts of the school. And then we start creating courses, first like short courses online live and here in Brazil. And from 5 years ago from now, we have we grown a lot. We have a lot of courses, a lot of themes, a lot of teachers, several students, and we decided to go global, start offering courses with Brazilians and with like international teachers, focusing in a more global environment. So we are making this happen as a part of this movement. So thank you everyone for joining us, for being a part, for making this idea happen. We are very happy and excited with this movement and with this moment. And that's it. We will have Do talk a little bit about the course and a little bit about himself, and then the participants. And at the end, we will have a moment for Q&A. So if you have questions, so just wait to the end, and we will invite everyone to participate. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gus. Welcome, everyone. Really happy to have you here. My voice is shitty right now because I'm very sick, but bear with me, please. So I'm Du. Together with Aprender Design, we launched the Art Direction 101 course 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago. I was living in Sweden back then, and Gus and Laura told me they wanted a very hands-on course about how people could develop themselves within Art Direction in general. So the course is very practical and activity-driven. There's a lot of interaction with the peers, with me. We have guests at the end of the course so they can see and provide thoughtful feedback for you guys. And this next course will happen from September 13 to October 11. It's every Saturday afternoon, depending on where you are, of course. And this is just like a glimpse of past works. The first task that we do at the Art Direction 101 is called Setting the Table. And basically is a self-investigation about your own taste, who you are, where you want to go with your Art Direction, and trying to understand the things you like and what can set you apart in the market. And in the end, we divide the class into several groups, and every group come up with a final branding project. And the whole goal of this project is basically, train your eyes and make you guys a better art director while constructing images and conveying ideas through images. And yeah, that being said, let's begin very quickly. As it's not about me, this meeting is about Matteus and Aaron. For context, I worked with Aaron back in Media Arts Lab, And I know Matteo's work for a long time now. We have friends in common, so I'm a really, really huge fan from both of their works. So I'm really happy that you guys took a moment to show up here. So thank you guys. I'm Du. I'm a designer, a director, teacher, and I'm a couscous lover, which is a very traditional Northeast dish from Brazil. I've been doing this for more than 10 years. I won several prizes. I won a lot of recognition. As we know, we should navigate this creative world in order to make ourselves up to the game of finding a cool job or a very important work that will set apart our work in our careers. And I brought these two images, which is image that I took a photo in a very different moment of my life. The one on the left, both of them are in Brick Lane here in London. I'm London based. And the one on the left I took in 2019. I had won New Blood Awards contest. And then and like several students, we also was in the running for a spot in the New Blood Academy here with DNAD. And it was really tough because, as you can see, my English is very broken, but at the time I couldn't say a word in English. And I put myself out there. I won the contest and I came to London and I took this photo and it was like, I really want to see how this image go through time. And the other one on the right is a photo that I took when I moved here last year. So yeah, you can see there's a lot of impressions of time in the same space. And I think also this says a lot about our direction, culture, pop culture, design, because most of the times we forget that we're creating images for other people and in context that we need to take together with the brief, with the project in general. And sometimes we just create for ourselves. And I think that's the problem when you are beginning your career. But yeah, talk a little talk for later. I'm gonna show a little bit of my work. This is my reels from 2023. I know I need to update, but I really like this reel yet. So let me see if you can hear the music. So yeah, that's a glimpse of my work. As you can see, I collaborated with multiple brands because I used to work in agencies like AKQA, Media Arts Lab, and things like that. I also always did a lot of freelance work, which seems fun, but it also was super overwhelming. I think one of my most recent works that I like is Great Works Happens on
You ready?
we did on Media Arts Lab. Probably Aaron knows about this one. I'm coming back because of the I forgot there is a music on the video, but I will show you guys real quick.
Yeah. Hey everyone, this is Pink Pantheress,
This is Cash Cobain.
and we're going to show you how to make a song on a MacBook very quickly. This song was called Nice to Meet You, and we made the beat from scratch. I really just like the simplicity of the program. So for this song, we used a sample, which I've always
Anyway, this was a very cool campaign because it started with a design insight about how our profile pictures in MacBooks says a lot about us sometimes. And a lot of the scams we did at the beginning were around this idea of the symbol of the profile when you log in into your MacBook. And it got evolving until we did that about everyone because back in the day, when they did a MacBook campaign, they always put the people behind the Mac. That was the campaign, right? Behind the Mac. I don't know if you guys know about this campaign, but it was huge. And the truth about this campaign was that you're always like in your zone, creating with your Mac, but you could never see what was going on inside the screen. So for that campaign with Pink Panthers and other creators, we actually dove in like inside the screen content. And it was all about the things they do. And even the wallpaper that we did for Pink Panthers, she sent us like a keynote with a lot of Y2K references, and we created from scratch. So it was really, really interesting. This one, it was a freelance work that I did for Raquel Virginia, and she's a trance singer from Brazil. And she wanted to sell this new concept of her new album of like selling herself as an object, as a material part of the society that is up to be bought. And yes, it was all about vernacular design and things like that. So I used more than like 19 fonts for this project, and I was really scared, but I ended up even like winning a prize of like the chemistry of typeface, because I managed to use hundreds like fonts, and it came out really well in the end. And this is a personal project you guys can see on my website. Call it Sneaking to Places That Weren't Designed for Me. I'm just bringing just two images for you to see, but that's basically an exhibition that I did independently for the last 2 years with different artists from Brazil. And the idea is to us to question this space about being a director, being a designer, and being an artist, and why this is a problem for a lot of like people in the market, and what is the limit between what you create for the world as an artist, and what you create for a campaign, commercial outcome, right? And it's all about question those spaces, because in the end of the day, for me, you always put a part of you in the things you're creating. So there is still a key element of yourself through this process, they like it or not. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna pass over to Matteus, and I can't wait to see what he cooked for us. Thank you.
Can you see my screen? Is it
Yes.
fine? Okay. So yeah, first of all, hi everyone. Yeah, it's a really nice opportunity to talk with you all, and thanks Gustavo and Aprender Design for the opportunity. And yeah, I'm really grateful. And this is my first time doing this kind of presentation, so I'm a little bit nervous. So, and also like bear with me if I make any mistakes. So yeah, but I hope you all enjoy. Um, First of all, I'm Mateus, and I'm from Guarulhos, which is a city in the metropolitan area of São Paulo, Brazil. And now I will tell you a little bit of my journey and how it has impacted like in my design practice today. I've structured the presentation like by years. So the first range is 1992 and 2000, and I will begin in 1992 because it was the year that I was born. So one of my first memories as a kid was like playing football with my friends. I used to live in this very calm and dead end street. So like it was pretty easy to all the kids together in the street after the school, and just have fun. Yeah, it was a really cool time. And also another big thing for me was like playing video games, because I was like always a very introverted guy. So big part of my childhood was like, besides playing football, was like to stay at my home and like just play video game for long hours. And my favorite one back in the days was Super Nintendo. Um, and then I think it was like around 99 or 2000. My parents, they bought their first computer. And then like for me it was love at the first sight, like, so when I got a computer, the first thing that I thought was like, oh, can I play video games in this one as well? So it was pretty fun. And then it was just the beginning of the internet. So things like were way harder to find, like than nowadays. So when I found this emulator called ZNES, was like an emulator for Super Nintendo. It was like basically just magic for me. We could download and play like any game. because before that, like, you have to buy the cartridge, and they were like pretty expensive, like especially in Brazil, or you had to rent them like in a rental shop. But then you could only keep them like for a few days. So when I discovered this emulator, was like pretty big thing for me. It was like, it felt like magic, like you could play and just like download any games like forever, like for long hours. Yeah, I think like this was almost like I felt it was like a starting point for everything in the designing world, like in my journey. Um, because I was like exposed to so many different languages, different styles, that somehow inspired me to have this curiosity to keep like exploring and playing the different ways. Not only like the video game, of course, but I think that played like a big role in my early days. Now I'm gonna fast forward a little bit to 2007. I had 15 years old in that time, and I was living in a different city called Praia Grande. Praia Grande is located like in the southern coast of the state of São Paulo. And then I remember that in that time I was doing like high school in a place that was like very far away from my home. So my friends were like kind of really far from me. So when I back from the school, I would basically like spend the whole day on the internet, and there was this game called Pangia. And that time I was like very like into that game. It's just this online golf simulation game like from South Korea. But in that time they had a Brazilian server, and it was there that I found this forum that was like they talking about tournaments, like to make announcements about the game. It's like a Reddit, but most like for the game itself. And then I remember that was like inside this forum that it was where I discovered like that people could have like their own customized profile picture. They also have these things called signs and user bars that are like very popular in forums back in the day. So like there are like basically these montages like using any kind of stock. So people will grab, for example, the Spider-Man picture and then like just play with like different textures, brushes, typography, etc. And then was like my first time seeing this type of work. So I was like very curious to see and how people were doing that. And then one day I met one guy in this forum, and then he was like creating this guild to compete with like other teams inside Panga. And then inside of this guild, they have some guys that they were doing like this kind of visual. So like I was very interested to learn with them how they were doing that. So this guy, he just shared with me like a link to this software that was called Macromedia Fireworks MX 2004, was like a giant name for me. And then I downloaded this game, a cracked version, of course, because back in the days you have to crack everything, like put the serial number, like do the stuff like that Windows can do, because the program, the software itself was like very expensive. So this was my first design software that I used it, and it was pretty fun for me because this is a software that wasn't designed to do this type of work. Like was more designed to do like web design stuff, like more like flat design and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is how everything started. And then I remember like a few months later, I kind of started to digging more like in these area of forums and everything. And then it was where I discovered this one that was called Plasma Studio, and it was more specific for design. And it was a Brazilian forum with a lot of talented people. Like until today, like there's some people that came from this forum, like in the era. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see that. And then I think it was there that I discovered Photoshop and now the Adobe softwares. So I changed like the fireworks thing that was like pretty old to the Photoshop CS3 in 2007. Yeah, it's pretty old, but like back in the days it was like the best one. And then like I could have more fun because Photoshop was way better than fireworks. So like they have more adjustment, more tools. And then I started to do this kind of work, like these signs. I think these were like on my first works in Photoshop. And then like looking back now, it's like they don't look so bad, like because back in the days we didn't have like Pinterest or like Behance or like Arena, a lot of tutorials, YouTube, with all this stuff. So you basically had to discover by yourself, just learning, exploring, like failing, just like playing with different tools, experimenting with like crazy brushes, like it was really fun thing. And then at the same time, I was also exploring like different software, like 3D softwares. And this one was Cinema 4D. So like I started to incorporate that into my work. I was really into do like these kind of abstract 3D renders. They're kind of popular nowadays as well, but that was like early 2000, 2007, 2008. So I started to do that, like just playing like without any rule, without any restraint, like um, yeah, it was pretty fun. I think it was around 2008, 2010. So yeah, I felt there was like a really room to exploration, and I think that's like was a big thing for me in the beginning. And then moving forward to 2010, I moved back to São Paulo to study graphic design. And then between 2011 and 2018, I've worked in some different companies. So Consulado was where I first started my career. Like I was an intern there. They were like a production company in São Paulo. They used to do a lot of 3D and motion design for like MTV and like ESPN. Like they do a lot of cool stuff. And then after I went to Flag, there was like a really big agency in São Paulo. They were doing like a really disruptive works back in the days. But then more specifically in 2016, I was working in an advertising agency in São Paulo called Africa. And one project that really stands out for me, even like if it's no longer aligned with my current design style, was this campaign for Brahma. And Brahma, for who doesn't know, like is one of the largest beer brands in Brazil. They are huge there. And then at their time, like in 2016, their visuals were very photo hub based. And then we introduced this new system, like using only the brand colors, the texture, the typography, with the product in the center. And until like today, like 9 years later, they're still using the same style. So like if you go to Brazil, you're gonna see this kind of work in some restaurants, some like bars, like around the city always. So like it's really rewarding to see like even like after 8, 9 years, um, like my work, not only my work because we have more people work, but like my work can like reach this level and like stay relevant for like 9 years. So yeah, it's pretty good to see. I also have a lot of friends that they are still working there. So like they keep evolving the brand. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see. And then going like to the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I was working as a freelancer. And then I received an email from Felipe Galliano, who was the creative director for AKQA Tokyo in that time. And then he sent like an email for me asking me if I wanted to move to Tokyo to work with him. And then like, of course, I didn't think twice about it. And then 3 months later, I was moving to Tokyo with my wife. Um, it was my first time in Japan and also like first time moving and living together with someone. So for me, it felt like a big change in my career and in my life. But I was very lucky to work with very nice people and a lot of great people. I got a lot of great persons that helped me to do some of my best work. And then they have like as a client there Nike, and we were like responsible for creating the different content for the editorial, also like for the social media channels. And one of my favorite projects there was this one that it's called Create with Air Max. We did this to celebrate the Air Max week in Japan. That is like a big thing. We created this physical zine. I have here with me. We create like it's real, so we created for real. And then we did this to allow the users to express their style using the Air Max kicks, and also they could see what they were creating like in real life. We built this app that you could see like the AR in real time while you're just drawing the illustrations of the paper. So yeah, it was really fun to develop like the whole graphic system for the zine. Like we received a bunch of cool assets from the Nike global team, and they gave us like total freedom to play with this. So we created like our version that was more like into the Japanese style, the magazines that in Japan they had, with a very loose design that you can break the grids, basically just make things look good. So yeah, it was a pretty cool one. Another one was this one that called Nike 101. So we was basically like to bring these unscripted conversations between the Nike elite athletes And this one was featuring Yuto Horigomi. He won the Olympic street competition gold medal. And then he told us a little bit of his journey. So we translated that into some like expressive illustrations and animations that felt so on point for him. And we had the opportunity to work with a great Brazilian an illustrator and animator called Daniel Semanas. And he did this amazing work that was so fresh and matched with the Yuto's vibe. Like, yeah, it's pretty amazing. And then another one that's super cool is I created identity for the first Nike's podcast in Japan called One of Us. So we created this system with like a very modular and very vibrant and a dynamic approach. And then I did some animations as well, like to go together with the visuals. And they added a great touch to the system as well. And then this one was like this series of collages for Nike by You, featuring a Japanese band called Hitsuji Bungaku. You guys can check later. They do great music. It's really nice. And it was like heavily inspired by a Japanese magazine called Brutus, which they do a lot of these, fashion collage style. They use like different angles and play like with different textures in a great way. So yeah, it was very fun to do this one as well. This one was a project to launch the new Nike SB. Nike SB, the SB is the skateboard franchise and products for Nike. So they did this collaboration with Gundam, and Gundam is like a very popular anime in Japan. And then to launch this product, they created this skate competition called New Type Jan that was in front of this giant Gundam in Yokohama. If anyone goes to Tokyo, like Japan, like you have to check this. It's really nice. Like you can go to the top and like interact with the robot. It's pretty fun. And then I did the lockup and the visuals for the competition. That was kind of inspired by the interface, and the graphics from the giant robots. And I also had the help of a great friend and motion designer called Chiquinho that animated this key visual. Yeah, it's pretty dope. Yeah, and for me it was like really fun. I went to the event and took some pictures. It was really fun to see what I did in different applications around the competition, and also like in some merch as well. Another one, it was this lockup and identity for Nike Style Club. So which was like this community to celebrate the Nike members' style and then provide them with the opportunity to be featured in the Nike app. So we use this very saturated and vibrant colors palette and this stretched typeface combined with the Japanese typeface to pop up together with the outfit from the members. And the last one that I did there is actually not the last one, but last one that I put here was a super fun as well, like the Nike Summer Camp. It was this virtual programming that featured the athletes and local influencers that offers this series of sports and well-being activities on the Nike app. And then we created this bunch of different cool characters that was inspired by the Japanese culture to engage with the community. So you can see like the Shiba Inus that they're like a big hit in Japan, like the Nara deers, the Kakigori, the shaved ice stuff, the girl doing yoga. Like there's like different characters. Like we created like more than 30, I think. So yeah, it was pretty fun to do this one as well. And then moving a little bit to 2002, and now I moved from Tokyo to work in AKQA London. And then while I was in London, I was like trying to do some side projects, because I always try to do that after work, try to work on some personal projects or like other projects that are not on the 960, the agency projects, like just to refresh my mind and to work on different stuff. I think it's very important to do that. And one of them was this visual identity that I did for Synthesis. They are like this Brazilian organization that are focused on the multi-sector media and entertainment projects. And their founders are Gen Z, so they really need this brand that carries their bold and aggressive approach, but in this cool way, And then the first thing that I created for them was this monogram DS that felt so on point, like with their style. It has this sharp and distinctive edge, like their work. And then after that, I was like exploring and developing other brand assets like merch or like poster for the events or like some collaterals. We did this Yu-Gi-Oh inspired card for Skepta. They were like really cool. And then like playing with the different aspects of the brand as well. Always with this fresh and dynamic look and feel. But for me, like, it's not everything that needs like a meaning every time. Like I know that strategy, concept, like direction are very important in our career in like another design project. Um, but I don't know, for me, sometimes it just looks cool and we can go with it. Uh, yeah. And then last year, 2024, I've decided to go full-time freelance after like more than 10 years working full-time in agencies. And that was when I met people from Kinas. They are this creative agency that works like at the intersection of sports, fashion, and culture, which are things that I really like to work most. So it was a great fit. Also, one of the owners is a Brazilian guy called Eduardo, and he's a really nice guy. So he invited me to work with them, and it's always great to work with other Brazilians. So it felt really nice. Um, and then one of the first projects that I did with Dan was to launch the Mercurial Air Max 95, and the whole concept was about to capture this essence of the 90s Nike ads using like this striking photography with just like minimal graphics. And then we complemented with this bold all tight poster for this modern yet nostalgic impact. And then on the colors, we used like this bright fold green that was inspired by the boot studs. And then the gray was taken from the upper part of the boot, which has this really great contrast. And yeah, it just looks really nice. Um, and they also do a lot of internal projects. So this one was, we created some bootleg logos on sponsor kits from the 90s. And then with that, we developed like a whole editorial piece that was heavily inspired by some fashion magazines like Dazed or like Old 32C, which has this great experimental shooting with different treatments. And then we layer like some graphics in a different way to create this dynamic spread. So like each page feels different from each other, which is a really fun project as well. And also we printed this massive journal version. So it's really big. So, and I have some copies here in London. So if anyone wants to grab a copy and it's from London, I can send you some. And this one was really good as well, like to launch the Nike United Packy boots. We created this graphics system inspired by the TV's Command Century, where you can watch all the highlights from the game. So the idea was basically to bring this approach with a modern energy and then capturing different moments of a football match. It was really fun and it looks really cool when you see all the screens together. It was like a massive work to do like all the screens, all the details, all the grids. And we also did this 3D animation featuring some pod products to go along with the assets, just to bring a little bit of movement. And the last one that we did is this to launch the Nike Phantom boots. It's my favorite one, this one. We developed like a whole campaign around the boot having like its own mind. And just by using them, the opponent would get like really scared. So like the whole photography, art direction carry like this sense of mystery. And we use like this heavy shadow play with high contrast lighting, combining graphics that was like inspired by these report files, to give the impression that the boot was like trying to find his perfect match. Um, and then everything was like framed in this Nike POV's Phantom, with the boot in surveillance mode, like hunting for its prey. Um, we also like experimented with like a wide range of textures, treatments to bring the boot's vision to life, like from bold gradient maps, like small details, like tracking graphics to depth scan filters. And for me, this one, I felt almost like a therapy session. Like I was back into 2007, like the really young Matteus, like just playing with different tools different graphics, different elements from Photoshop and like other software. So just to do like cool stuff, like without thinking too much, just having fun. Yeah, it felt like really nice for me. And then to end, I found this hat that this has this phrase that can summarize everything. So yeah, ever since I was a small child, I knew I wanted to be indoors on the computer. Of course, it's like it's kind of joke for me. Like I like to be outdoors as well, but I felt this like kind of close the cycle where I started, like just being like very curious to like discover new tools. And then where am I now? Like I think it has a big influence on me, like everything that I did since the beginning. So yeah, like thanks again everyone for having me. It was really cool to share a little bit of my story. So, and hope you all enjoy the presentation. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, mates. Really, really inspiring. I know you have to leave 6:15, right?
6:50 actually. I have more time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Let's lead to Aaron then.
Awesome. Thanks, Du. Does everyone see this? Sweet.
Yeah.
Let's go. Cool. Yeah. Thanks. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I'm honored and humbled to be talking to you guys today. I've followed the work coming out of Aprender since I knew that Du was there, and even seeing some of the students' work earlier was amazing. And I'm a huge fan of both Du and Matteus's work. So really great to kind of share this session with you guys today, and also a pretty tough act to follow, having just seen Matteus talk through his work for 30 minutes. So he's really set the bar there. And yeah, I've been a big fan of Matteus's work for a long time, and it was great to kind of hear a little bit about the story as well. But yeah, so I here's me. Obviously, like I live in LA. I'm a creative director and co-founder of Explorers Club. A little bit more on that in a second. I've worked with brands such as Apple, Atlantic Records, Coca-Cola, Doc Martens, Nike. I've won quite a few awards and stuff over the years, which is obviously kind of always a nice feeling as well to be kind of recognized. Here's just a small recap on some of the stuff I've done over the last few years, from Nike to Apple to Formula One to other kind of big brands like that as well. So just a kind of little snapshot of some of the projects I've done over the last few years. Starting right from the kind of beginning, or just very briefly, like I said, I now currently live in Los Angeles. That's not quite my view from my window on the right there, but on the left is the view from my parents' house where I grew up in the UK. So I grew up like absolutely like in the middle of nowhere. Like I love that I kind of grew up in the middle of nowhere. I was like a little bit kind of frustrating as like a child. Like you can see how many or how few other houses and people there are around my parents' house. So like, in terms of like friendship groups and social connection was like pretty limited, but I kind of like love that because it kind of, it gave me the kind of energy and curiosity to kind of see what else was out there in the world. So yeah, it felt like growing up in the middle of nowhere, like I had a lot of catching up to do perhaps when I was like 18 and moved out and went to art college, etc. But yeah, I kind of, I love visiting, I love the fresh air, but it gave me this huge kind of energy and ambition to kind of like get out and achieve and to do things kind of like hyper fast, so to speak. So yeah, so also when I moved to LA, I moved over here via boat because my dog can't fly. So yeah, always an excuse to kind of get a picture of my cute dog Bronson in a presentation. So this is him riding the front of a boat to move here, which is always cute. Like I said, so I'm co-founder and creative director of Explorers Club. We're a strategy and design studio based between London and Los Angeles, founded by really good friend and strategic director Io Fagbemi and myself. We've been doing Explorers for just over a sort of year and a half now. So in that time, we've worked with Coca-Cola, Universal Music Group, Instacart, Atlantic Records, Doc Martens. So yeah, just over a year, we've worked with a lot of really exciting and amazing brands, and have some really great partnerships with a lot of these clients as well. But yeah, so what I wanted to kind of focus on mostly today is kind of like when Du kind of asked me to kind of like talk about my kind of journey through the industry, I kind of wanted to like look back a little bit and kind of think almost about like a kind of like 10 learnings. Always feels like a kind of good amount and a good list for me. So, these are very much kind of personal learnings that I play back to myself regularly and try and kind of continuously learn and build as my own creative. I'm not saying these are a set of rules or advice for anyone. These are very much like my personal learnings, but I hope that, there's some value and some use in these for you guys today. And I'm going to try and get through that in 25 minutes as well. I can be known to talk a bit too long, so I'm going to try and keep the pace up. So first one feels like a nice healthy one to kind of start on, like this idea of like embrace your naivety. And I think the reason why I kind of always look back on this and love this as a sentiment is like I think like so much of our kind of like industry and like my experience now being the best part of 15 years in is about partnerships and relationships and the context and the brief and how hard like results have to work, and don't get me wrong, that's so important to our business and it's something that I love doing now. But just looking back over the last like decade and a half, like I think like there's just such a great value in like kind of naivety. I think like going into the industry in my young 20s was just like not knowing anything was so incredibly healthy. And I think just like I encourage anyone at the earlier stages of their career to do that. Just don't try and know everything too soon. Like just be super naive, have that energy, and just kind of like really kind of go into things kind of just like incredibly kind of like naive and kind of open. And kind of a project that I want to kind of talk to that about is my first project that I worked on for Nike, which was probably about 10 years ago now. I think like knowing what I know about Nike now, there's like, as Matteus showed, like there's so much amazing work that happens kind of throughout the world. But there's like, what's the look and feel of football? What's the look and feel of basketball? What's the look and feel of like different geos? And I think just going into my first Nike project, I had absolutely no idea about like any of this. And I just purely kind of like, really kind of focused on what I thought was like the kind of the best concept, the best craft, the best treatment. And I think that allowed this work to be like really fresh and really energetic, for that. And I think like had I have thought about this project now, knowing what I know about Nike, I don't think I would have approached it the same. And this project was for Nike Italy, and I think like having this kind of typography concept, using this kind of reverse stress that kind of really pulled on like sort of like the heritage of Italian kind of typography, but in much a kind of a sporting lens. It just I think it allowed, because of my kind of naivety going into Nike, it just allowed me to kind of be really expressive and really kind of bold with how we kind of approach this in terms of like the kind of the creative treatment for the campaign. And I also think off the back of that, I built like really good relationships with people at Nike, like Helen's still one of my favorite clients I've worked with there, and PK. So that allowed me like my naivety kind of going into that project just kind of allowed me to kind of just think about the project in its kind of creative kind of ambition, as opposed to like the wider context of kind of like the brand kind of ecosystem at that time. So my second point, create for the audience and not just the industry. A little bit of a hot take maybe. It's something that I think about quite a lot. I think like I think that at the end of the day, like what I see the kind of creative industry is we're all problem solvers. And I think we use design and creativity as our toolkit to solve those problems. And I just think that there's like, we're responsible to solve those problems. And I think there's a lot of output and there's a lot of discourse in the industry that's about awards and stuff. Don't get me wrong, awards feel amazing, but and like kind of like all the kind of LinkedIn discourse and stuff. And I just kind of like, something that I always try and keep close to myself is thinking about what the brief is and thinking about the audience and the brand that we are solving work for. And as a byproduct of that, if you get industry success, press, PR, etc., don't get me wrong, that is so important for the wider kind of growth. but I just think like really having that kind of like audience and the core brief at the center is something that I always try and stay really true to. So a project that I feel like kind of like really shows this off is for Nike World Cup 2019. It was the first time that I think like Nike and a lot of other sports brands really kind of like invested in the kind of marketing output of women's football, women's soccer. Something that I'm super passionate about. Obviously, Lionesses are great at football, more so than the men, so it's incredible to watch those guys succeed. But yeah, so it's the first time there was a huge kind of like investment in women's football on a kind of marketing level. And I don't know about you guys, but growing up, like I had loads of posters on the wall of my favorite like football players, obviously all male athletes, but to this point there was like no posters of female footballers. So along with Nike, we created a suite of like, I can't remember, it's nearly 100 posters. And we printed them over 1 million times and released 1 million posters of women's footballers into the world. So obviously, like, we designed and crafted these in a way that suited like the players and the different countries, and there was illustrations and there was scorecards, etc. But just to kind of, so here's kind of a few of those. We we obviously kind of shot all of the players all around the world as well. And just kind of really put them on this stage that you could, not only these athletes like were achieving at their highest level, but the next generation of 8, 9, 10, 13-year-old kind of female athletes had a hero to kind of look up to as well. And like I said, like we printed over 1 million of these and distributed them into the world as well. And also the outer wrapping, the outer packaging of this was a poster itself, so there was like absolutely no waste or anything like that. We're very conscious of that, putting 1 million posters into the world. So the actual packaging itself was the largest poster, and we developed this kind of unique fold with the printers in order to achieve that. So my third one, create to raise voices. I think this kind of follows a little bit from my last point. I think like, as creatives and designers, we have a platform and a voice, and I really see that as a responsibility that we should kind of like, abide by and really kind of, use our kind of scale and our platform to kind of raise and amplify voices. So yeah, I think like a project that really kind of exemplifies that is the project I did for Nike and Raheem Sterling, who's a English footballer. He's not in the England team anymore. I think this is probably about, again, like 8 years ago. But at the time, he was one of England's best players. But he was getting a lot of like negativity in the British media. Him and unfortunately a lot of other kind of footballers and of color were getting a lot of kind of negative press for absolutely like no sporting related reason. And we felt it was Nike and our responsibility to really kind of back him in this moment. So yeah, in this kind of dream crazy kind of brand context of Nike at the time, we wrote this line of don't just dream for you, dream for the next you. And I think Raheem was doing an amazing job of, standing up for himself and others that could look up to him as well. So we shot this campaign with him back at his high school. So this is the high school that he went to when he was like 11 to 15. And we shot this like squad photo in this like, but there's like 80 or so kids here in this kind of like epic football squad photo. It was like it was a really, really tough shoot, probably the toughest shoot I've done. Like having 80 kids on set, we styled them all individually. Like, we kind of obviously like got this set up. We had the kids there for a few hours, and then obviously naturally with like elite athletes, you get like 12 minutes with them. Raheem's actually super chill, but yeah, like we shot this squad photo with all of the kind of kids in his school around him, which just felt like a really powerful way of saying, don't just dream for yourself, but dream for the next versions of yourself as well. And even just a bit of like BTS, like look at these kids' faces when like someone like Raheem is like, showing up on the school playing field to kind of be part of this squad photo with them. So yeah, it was a pretty special moment seeing how much it kind of meant for those kids. And that's the sort of work that I kind of really kind of like love doing, that has that kind of meaning and that power for future generations. And that image itself, I don't know if it still is. This was like 8 years ago, but for a long time, that image itself was like printed as a poster on the side of the school building. So I'd feel, hopefully as a kid, like I'd feel pretty special rocking up to school that day with like a picture of like Raheem Sterling and a squad that I'm part of, like on the side of the school building. So yeah, I think like doing work that really kind of supports the next generation and the kind of wider aspect that sport plays in our lives. We also, like, from this, did like a kind of mural out of home campaign where we only, it was a small, obviously like big media buyers can travel countries or global, but all of the sites were just in his hometown on the outskirts of London. So just really speaking to where he kind of grew up and making those dreams feel like more attainable. So yeah, we spoke to kind of different beats in his kind of career, his dreams, when he spoke up against the media. And obviously, speaking to you guys at Aprender today, I was trying to squeeze in a bit of a Brazilian reference, and his hero growing up was Ronaldinho. So we created this kind of mural with him and Ronaldinho together as well. So my fourth beat is surround yourself with people better than you. I have been lucky enough to work with a lot of incredibly talented people over the years. One of my favorite designers for several years was Richard Turley. He's done like Civilization magazine, Bloomberg Business Week, and I was lucky enough to be mentored by him for a couple of years whilst I was at Wieden and Kennedy, and just really kind of push for that opportunity and just push to learn from that as much as possible. And also, like, I actually stole this quote, I think, from someone else who used it in a presentation called Mark Shanley, who I think was, probably one of my favorite ever bosses. I think we went on to almost be like a kind of partnership, but was definitely like someone that I learned probably the most from in my career, particularly about like leadership as well. And I kind of hold my learnings from Mark like kind of very closely. And stole this from a page in one of his presentations that I watched once, but it feels like a nice way to kind of pass on that kind of sentiment. So I think like a project that I kind of want to talk about in terms of like surrounding yourself with better people is like, now at Explorers Club, I feel very like incredibly lucky and really proud of the team that we're building. So I wanted to show this work for Coca-Cola. Recently launched a record label called Real Thing Records. And just the entire team on this, from Nelta and George and Alex, worked on the art direction. We shot this campaign like earlier this year with them. And then from the kind of design system, from Sasik, Geordie, who some of you may even know, Shafar, Fernanda, Cheyenne, and Eugene, like, just really proud of this project for Coca-Cola. Like, uses the red square from the front of their can as the icon, and then all of the design system and all of the motion is driven by generative music. So everything within this is all just driven by the rhythm and the beat of songs or videos that you kind of upload. So it's incredibly kind of like generative and flexible. I think at Explorers Club we love doing really innovative and really kind of brave work, and really bold work, but we love that we can systemize that and pass that over to our clients as well. So this generative kind of motion system that Charlie built with us is, it's incredibly brave and impactful and like ambitious, but at the same time we've given this over to Coca-Cola for them to use with their in-house creative team as well. So yeah, we love doing really like innovative work that is also really easy to hand over to our kind of partners and clients as well. My next point is simplify. I feel like this page would be most effective if I don't say anything else to it, right? But I think this is something that I learned from my time at Apple, a couple of years there, obviously working with Do. I think like definitely something I took away from that time was simplify. Like, I think like sometimes as creatives we can hide behind lots of things and lots of layers and lots of kind of noise. And don't get me wrong, like I still love like maximalism, and like I kind of grew up with like punk zines and things like that. So I love the energy of maximalism, but at the same time, I think as kind of creative problem solvers, I always love this ambition of simplify and like if does it need to be there, or how much more can you kind of like, take away from that? And yeah, so something that I kind of wanted to show for this is this work we did for the England Lionesses a couple of years ago. Like the England, for the first time in 50 or 60 years, won a major football tournament. Again, it feels weird to talk about football to a majorly Brazilian audience when England don't really have a foot in that conversation, but at least our Lionesses have brought it home twice. But yeah, I think why I wanted to talk about this project and why I love it is like, this project didn't really need like, it didn't need a deck, or it didn't need a TV ad, or it didn't need like loads of explaining or selling in. It was just like taking the pure Nike DNA of the swoosh, and Futura typeface, and obviously like home being a word that's synonymous with the success of English football, or at least it was synonymous once, and now fortunately 3 times thanks to the Lionesses. So yeah, just the simplicity of an idea that can sometimes be so obvious. It's like, anyone could have thought about it, but it's kind of takes our experience and our kind of skill and our craft to be able to execute those kind of those most simple ideas. So yeah, and obviously then like once the Lionesses won, this ended up on kind of flags and Wembley Stadium and everything. And then, a month or so ago, they obviously won it again, which was amazing to see as a football fan, and just to enjoy that. Like the whole tournament was just so sick, and like there's just such a good like energy in the team, and it's so great to watch as a football fan. But obviously it then kind of got progressed into the home too as well, and ended up on the side of a plane as well. So yeah, which is always good. My 6th point is be interested, not interesting. Again, this is something that someone told me quite early on in my career. It's definitely not my own quote, but it's something that I've kind of lived by. I think just be curious, always keep kind of like learning. I think it's like, curiosity is something that really inspires me in our industry more than anything. I have personal interests of sport and music, but I love working on brands that I've never thought about before, and like actually get a chance to kind of learn about those and immerse myself in those. I think that curiosity in me comes from growing up in a very rural field and wanting to kind of get out and to kind of explore what else is in the kind of the world. And yeah, I think to talk about this point, I wanted to talk about F1. It's, before I said I'm a huge sport fan, but I've never been much of a Formula One fan. But when I worked at Wyden and Kennedy in London, I was like just kind of obsessed with the opportunity on Formula One and what that could kind of mean. But I didn't know much about it going into it. But, I was quickly became so obsessed with the innovation and the technology of Formula One. Like, the innovation, the science in that is like, it's like spaceship, like NASA level, probably even more so. The speed they travel around the track at like over 200 miles an hour, like going around corners, like it's insane. And I think I just became obsessed with that, like that upper echelons of kind of performance, and like the kind of innovation and the technology that kind of went into that. And I think that inspired up me and like the rest of the team to like use innovation in our process. So throughout all of the kind of Formula One kind of branding and campaigns, we built this system in Touch Designer so that we could use kind of like real time like race footage and stats to create the kind of the visual output. So everything that we created for Formula One for like 2-3 years of working with them was entirely kind of like procedural, driven through Touch Designer. So we take real life footage, and based on like the location or the speed or the dynamics, or training where the car is in the image, to be able to kind of create these kind of key visuals. So yeah, just really using technology to kind of really push design and creativity forward as well. And after working with them for 2-3 years, they launched their first new car. I think it was the first new car for like 6 years. And we got the opportunity. I kind of pushed for the opportunity to design the car livery. So obviously the car shell itself had nothing to do with, obviously, but the kind of the design and the livery that lived on the outside of the car was something that we got the opportunity to design. So that was definitely like a bucket list moment to design a kind of Formula One car. My next point, I think I'm doing okay for time as well. I know my next point is, don't wait for the brief to come to you. I think something that I learned a lot along the way. I think I've worked in I've worked in small branding studios of 6 people. I've worked in medium-sized agencies of 50, and I've worked in big ad agencies of like 400 people. I think that's kind of big. But like, I think like something that I learned quite early on is like, particularly when you work in advertising, is the design brief never lands on your table. You have to go and find it and seek it out and search for the opportunity, which is, I think there's a level of like, there's part of the work in working out what the brief and what the kind of opportunity is. So a project to kind of talk to about this is one of my last projects I did at Apple. When we were working on the film for this, it's all stop motion puppets, and working on that for quite a long time. I'm sure you can imagine the craft that went into a stop motion film for Apple. But it was like a long time before like the discussion of the kind of design system, film titles and stuff like that was, kind of came about. And I just like it's kind of just kind of like clicked for me where I was like, if we're making a stop motion film for all of the the key characters, then that level of craft and that felt texture should come through in the design, the typography, and the kind of design system. So yeah, I made sure that we had like enough time to kind of go after something like this, knowing that so anything handmade is going to take like a long time. So yeah, we created this bespoke typeface cut from felt, entirely kind of hand drawn, and then cut from felt. And Jackie and Aichi, the two of the designers on this project, kind of you can sort of see some of the paper templates being cut out, and just hours and hours and hours of craft went into this. And I think just we wouldn't have had the time to achieve something of such beautiful kind of craft and execution if like we didn't identify that brief being there and kind of waited for it to perhaps come in to do the design system a little bit later. So yeah, we did a full alphabet in the sans and the serif. Everything was kind of stop motion animated as well. And yeah, I think like here's a bit of the kind of behind the scenes of like all these being cut out, etc. as well. So yeah, like so much kind of craft went into this, and even just like the little kind of fruit animation at the end is just like a really cute, simple kind of activation of that. And I think just like this is what I kind of mentioned awards at the beginning. I think this is one of them, a project that received like quite a lot of awards. And I think just like it's great to kind of it's always great to be awarded for work, but I think it feels great for the whole team that it is, it was highly awarded for a brief that we had to go after. It's not a brief that kind of landed on our table. So yeah, kind of love that sentiment. So I think it kind of picks up nicely on some of the things Matteus was saying towards the end of his flow as well. I like this sentiment of side hustle, but until it becomes your kind of main hustle. I think sort of definitely in the kind of middle stages of my career, sort of 7 or 8 years ago, I was just like, I was working as many hours outside of my day job as I was in it. It was never out of like, boredom of my day job. I was doing a lot of great work in fashion and even like some of the Nike projects at the time. So it was by no means like a kind of built out of frustration, but I think it was like just that adrenaline of wanting to kind of achieve and push and, push myself as far as I could in, I guess, the kind of fastest kind of, amount of time. And I think also the thing I loved about like doing like side hustle projects is they're on a much different kind of time scale. Like I think you work a lot faster, you learn to trust your instincts more, you kind of use your gut a lot more. And I think it just actually, I think it makes you a better editor and a better curator of your own work as well, because you're purely accountable for your own kind of achievements in your own time frame. So I think like self-editing and self-curating is kind of really, really important. And just to kind of a few of the kind of projects I did when I was kind of just like side hustling, worked a lot in music for Nicki Minaj and Future, did lots of like single covers for Nicki over a couple of years, all with like bespoke type and image treatment and etc. Obviously working in the music industry, it is very like vibes and taste and like there's not the kind of problem solving that I kind of love in aspects of my work, but it's just great to be able to kind of like taste, set taste and push taste within the kind of music industry. I did some merch for Lil Nas X, and I did lots of kind of music stuff over the years. And then kind of one fun, slightly controversial one that I always like to put up, I did a project for Pornhub, but it was like incredibly kind of like tasteful, and it was like one of the, I think it might have been partnered with Dazed or something like that at the time as well, but it was it was like, it was a very artful kind of project as well. But yeah, it was always fun to drop in a Pornhub project. So nearly there. So yeah, number 9, lessen the ego is something Io and I at Explorers Club like talk about a lot. I think over the years, like I think like something that we always, thinking like having less ego, being much more kind of humble in the conversation, it really allows for a better outcome of work. Like I think like I truly believe that like collaboration and partnerships and like sharing challenges, sharing successes is the best way to kind of win and succeed and grow in our industry. And I think I've learned that from good experiences and bad as well. And I just think it's so important to not have an ego in our industry, that we can all kind of achieve together. And I think like a really big part of Explorers Club is having that in our relationships with our client partners and stuff as well. And even not thinking about clients as clients and thinking about them as like a partnership of your team and an extension of that. And I think a really good example of that is Instacart, which I'm not sure if everyone globally kind of knows, but they're one of the biggest like grocery brands in North America. And we've been partnering with them for a few months now. And, just the partnerships there is like so great. Like we feel like an extension of their team. Like we work on everything together. Yes, we present and we have accountability and responsibilities and milestones, but like it just feels like every kind of brief and every aspect of working together feels like an extension of the team. And we kind of share that kind of responsibility together. And it's like it's these kind of relationships in our industry that make me want to like be excited about honestly getting up every day and working with clients that make for like really great relationships. So this is some of the work we've done with Instacart in the last couple of months, from their summer 99 kind of campaign, taking like all these snacks and prices back to the 90s. And we created this kind of like really kind of like 90s surf kind of look and feel. And I think it was like a true kind of like, because of that trust and we have as a team, and it allowed us to make something like really quite brave visually for a grocery brand. Like I think this is incredibly fresh and brave within the food and grocery market and world. And I think that is benefit to having such a great relationship with the team. Here's a bit of an overview of that, from everything we did, like in-app to emails, and just making sure that this like look and feel just really took over all of their touch points for the duration of the campaign. And then also they've launched another app recently that is just more drinks focused, called Fizz. And again, just like something with complete collaboration between us and the team, very focused at that kind of younger kind of audience and that group chat culture. So creating a kind of ordering app based around that kind of like how people order and communicate and kind of instinctively encourage people on their kind of within their kind of group chats. And again, just creating something that's incredibly systemized and kind of like being able to hand over to a team. From the way we created all of the like bubbles and the masks, everything was created into this toolkit that was able to hand over and pass over, so that we created like a lot of touch points. But we know that lots of our clients are often responsible for creating 150, 200 kind of like digital kind of ads throughout the kind of activation of a campaign. And then finally, sentiment that again at Explorers Club we kind of really, really love and hold really close to ourselves. Like, I'd say this is one of our kind of like strongest beliefs as a studio. I think I sort of think back to being like a child and having that kind of fearlessness of just playing and just seeing what happens. And I think like I think this kind of bookends nicely with my point about naivety at the beginning. And I think just like my biggest learning and perhaps biggest passion in the industry right now is to just never stop playing. Like, we got into this industry to have fun, right? To be passionate about creativity. We chose this because it's something that inspires us. that like, we should, and I just want to, encourage myself every day, and hopefully you guys a bit as well, to just continue to keep playing, exploring. And I think like, we are obviously, we have responsibilities, we have to deliver against briefs, we have deadlines, and we have we have to be accountable for all of those things. But just to remember that creativity should be play. I just think like, I think the purest form of creativity is when we were kids, and just like playing games and using our imagination and kind of making things up. And I sometimes think the industry has kind of lost that play a little bit. So I think like about 6 months ago, Explorers Club, we released our first book. We want to follow up with another one soon. But yeah, we called it play is the highest form of research, which is an Einstein quote. But I also like the kind of the punk in me kind of loves stealing a quote from Einstein and using it in a kind of creative kind of platform. But yeah, we created this book. I think it was about 200 pages. We just asked like kind of people from the industry, our friends, collaborators, clients, partners, etc., to kind of just remind their kind of what play means to them in their lives. And it was great to see stuff about people being parents, people remember being kids, and just what play kind of means to them in their kind of creative lives. And yeah, we always want to use this as a reminder to kind of like, to as a daily reminder at Explorers Club to keep play in our creative lives. And yeah, I think that's a nice beat to end on. So yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Honestly, I'm like honored to speak to you guys and to be on the same kind of schedule as Du and Matteus today. It means a lot. So yeah, I hope that was useful. And yeah, I guess I'll pass back to Du for a Q&A.
Thanks, mate. Really, really inspiring. That's so cool to see you guys process like a little bit of the background, the challenges. Like, I feel like in the Instagram when we post like our final projects, everyone will be like, "Oh, this is it." It's like they don't have really an idea of how challenging that was, or like, showcase that side of the process is really important because everybody can achieve that. It's like a constant practice, and I love to see that in both of your works and your stories. So thanks for sharing. Guys, I know we are on time. If you have any questions for Mateus, can you do it now because he has to leave in like 4 minutes. Any questions? Any?
I think we had one from Marceli. Could you all share a bit about your research process following a designer brief and how you get to the final idea, perhaps with an example of when your research influenced your final concept or design in a way that surprised you?
Very specific. I think the question is more like, how is your process when you receive the brief, Mateus? Like, what do you have to do usually? Do you have like a specific routine when you get a brief or not?
I don't know. I'm a very chaotic person, like I don't know, sometimes it's really depend of the client, but like now I'm doing like a lot of Nike work, so it's usually they have like the concept, like the strategy part kind of done, and then you have to do like more the art direction, the concept for the art direction. But I don't know, like for me, I really like to explore in the beginning, like just very loose, like talking about like design and layouts. Like I'm go like very broad with the layouts and everything, and then after that I go like very deep. There's like this phrase from Tyler, the creator, that they say that I forgot the phrase now, but like would like to create like a kid and add it like a scientist. So like I felt like that, though, just like create like a child, like go everywhere, and then after that to go like very deep, like and dig, like what you want to do. So I felt, yeah, I feel I'm doing that like sometimes.
Amazing. But you, Aaron, have a specific routine for that?
I think like a big part of our process is obviously like the research, the insight, and the strategic kind of platform building. We spend a lot of time speaking to the audience, speaking to the key stakeholders of the brand, and really trying to kind of then crystallize and synthesize those key kind of takeaways and get to like a really kind of like focused area of strategic thinking. And that kind of takes us like as the bridge from the brief and the objectives into a really strong strategic and creative point of view. And then once we have that, that's something that we can like rally everything behind. And that gives us I think when you have that really focused strategic point of view that everybody and the clients, the brand, the audience really believe in, I think that allows you to create really brave and ambitious work because you've got this point of view that kind of backs it up. So yeah, I think landing that, and then off the back of that, we do lots of explore, go super wide, focus in. But I think for us, that's the real nucleus of being able to kind of create great work.
Cool. Yeah, makes total sense. Another question is, have you guys been exploring with AI in your creative process? Have you ever used it as a final outcome in any project? Sensitive topic.
Yeah, for me, like, I mean, like, as everyone, like, I think we've been exploring with AI in different stages of the process. But at least for me, I never did like the final output on any project. But maybe it's because I didn't work on a project that all I have to do with AI. But for me, it's more like the exploration phase rather than like the final output. Um, but yeah, I never did like a final one in AI, so yeah, it's hard for me to talk about that.
Yeah, I think we use it loads. Like just use it to speed up our process. We use it simple admin related things. I've seen loads of note takers in the chat today. Yeah, I think we use it as like, a sounding board. I think we use it as to kind of like draft things. We use it for processes, we use it for comps, we use it for checking stuff. I think like using it as kind of placeholder comps and content in order to kind of sell work. I think where it can speed up the process, I think it's just like incredibly like useful. Like I'm trying to see it as so Matteus, I love that you had fireworks at the beginning. I haven't thought about that for years, but like we've gone through the whole like, did anyone here do Quark? Am I the oldest? Like, like we went kind of like Quark, Macromedia, Adobe, I'm like Figma. I remember when 3D kind of entered the industry loads. Like I feel like it's I'm trying to see it as like another tool that it just adds into we're still the thinkers, we're the problem solvers, we're the creatives. And I think seeing it as a tool that can help make us faster. I do read a lot about it. I think there was something I read recently where like it was like a Harvard study where they got everybody to do an exam like with and without AI, and obviously like the pass rate of the exam was like phenomenally higher when people used AI. But then after the exam, they tested people what they remembered, and what people remembered who used AI was scarily low. So I think that proves a point where it's like AI can quantifiably make you achieve something, but it doesn't make you learn something. And I think that for me is the real tension point in our industry right now, is using it to be a toolkit, as a tool in our toolbox, but not using it to do the thing, because we need to do that, otherwise we'll lose our creative muscle. That's my point of view on it.
Oh, thanks for sharing. A last one because Matthew has to go. So talking about product design, for example, apps like Instacart, what sort of collaboration happens when a KV or a concept is created? Could you talk a bit more about how the thing translates in experience apps? How's the collaboration?
Matteus, I know that was kind of aimed at an Instacart thing, but do you have a point of view on that? I'm conscious you have to kind of leave.
No, yeah, you can go, you can go. No
Cool.
worries.
I think for me, it's like everything's about a consistent but flexible toolkit. I think it's like landing that core concept again that's built from that strategic insight. And then like once you have that core concept, how does that flex across every touch point in a design system, and making sure that like you can be bold, ambitious, impactful, but it can also flex from, the big impact moment through to like what we call like mid funnel and low funnel, like how that can still look great and consistent on something that's 120 pixels high and is like just trying to convert a sale basically. So I'd say I think like that has to come in quite early on in the process. Once you've got that kind of core idea and that visual, straight away you have to start thinking about that, how that stretches across all of the touch points in the system, from to films, to posters, to animations, to emails, to in-app banners. So yeah, I would say like system thinking is a big part of what we do, and it allows you to be consistent, but to flex across those like different touch points that require a different element of the toolkit.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, guys. We are on time. Appreciate again all of you being here. Matteus, Aaron, you're legends. Thank you so much for your time, and hope you guys like it. A lot of cool comments in the chat. So please follow the school. We have other courses, other open classes in the future. So please be on the loop of Aprender Design. Thank you.